That's really the goal here is there are mystical experiences that await anybody who's able to deeply and profoundly shift their frequency. It's not that we're seeking the mystical for the mystical's sake. It's a greater level of understanding of the things that take place in the universe. And each of us with greater bandwidth of frequency, openness, awakening, awareness, intuition goes through the roof. You suddenly know how to handle things which used to baffle you. You've heard that somewhere. This is intuition. In early recovery, I was very clear that there was some kind of pull, emotional, mental, chemical, spiritual, physical, that I was subject to. I felt under the influence of something in recovery. I was still being influenced. And the way that showed up in my first sort of really 12 years of recovery, it showed up for me in different aspects of life. So I had removed drugs and alcohol from my life. And what I reflected on as drugs and alcohol were removed from my life, very quickly, my energy level went up. My ability to concentrate even a little bit came back. Where I had been completely scattered before, my energy all over the place and my mind unable to focus. But it came back very quickly. My body got stronger, my mind got sharper, and then there was incremental sort of healings, if you will, a deeper level of healing. And I would say, I feel like I should write a book someday called The 1,000 Detoxes. Because the first detox, the physical detox, so for example, for me as a heroin addict or a cocaine addict, there was a physical detox that needed to take place. And obviously, that's the grossest, the most heavy, dense form of detox that we do at the level of the physical body. When the detox, that initial detox was done and drugs and alcohol were removed from my life, my body came back online, mind came back online. I'm reflecting now, looking back. Something about my whole being changed. And as I put myself into the work of the 12 steps, and I came to meetings every day and spoke to my sponsor and connected with other people in recovery as a practice. Like that's what I was doing literally every day for about 5 years. As I was doing that, things about my life were changing. The way that I saw things, the things that I saw, the people that I hung out with changed. The circumstances and the environments I found myself in changed. My energy was still hyperactive in nature, still not quite, grounded, but compared to what I had been, very different. So there was an emotional onboarding, if you will. My emotions were starting to onboard in a way. And that first level of detox, that physical detox had taken place, and I was doing the work, and my life was changing. And we speak about, in Recovery 2.0, I speak a lot about consciousness and awakening, the awakening and the flowering of one's consciousness. There is a mental, spiritual, physical aspect of the awakening experience. And there's also an experience at the level of energy. Not meaning like I have energy, that's good, but I have a certain kind of energy, or what I'm able to experience is I'm able to experience because I've shifted my frequency. That I was in a frequency, literally, a frequency, not visible, but a kind of a frequency. I'll give you an example of what I mean, and then we'll continue down this inquiry. I went to get something at the supermarket yesterday. I was at the checkout stand. A guy who had loudness and anger in his voice, who came very close to me rather than obeying sort of, like everybody's like still social distancing inside. So there are those steps where you're supposed to stand 6 feet apart, and this guy was just right up, right here next to me, not really aware of his own space, anger in his voice. And there was a whole thing to this guy. And I felt this inner part of me want to say, hey man, step off, step back, move. That's what I want. That's what the inner impulse was. And I recognized I was feeding off of his energy, his frequency. I'm from New York also. I'm not unfamiliar with that closeness and that energy and the loudness and the thing that he was experiencing. He had a frequency, this guy. And it was a frequency of anger. Now you could say, oh, well, that's an emotion. Yes, there's an emotion, but there was also I never looked at him once. I just heard and I felt him. And my louder impulse was, Tommy, step away from this person as soon as you can. Get away. Because he was carrying a frequency, an energy, a vibration to him, which was immediately palpable to me. He was in the frequency of anger. I stepped out of there and I went through in my mind what that was. I said to myself out loud in the parking lot, I know what that is. I know what that is. I've been there before. I've had friends who've been there before. Abrasiveness, really sort of ungrounded abrasiveness, potentially violent energy. Have you guys ever felt that in anyone you've been around? You know what I'm talking about? Hold up your hand if you know what I'm talking about. Yeah. Okay, so that's energetics. That's a frequency. And that guy, I'm telling you, I'm not some kind of soothsayer. I'm telling you, that guy's having a rough time. He's going to encounter problems. He's going to create problems without even knowing it. He may wonder in his quiet moments, how did this happen to me? I can't believe what's happening to me. Can you believe this next thing that just took place? Oh my God, my life. Like, who are these people? Ah, and it's like he's full on traumatized. So there's a compassion piece for me, for him. But he's not mine to fix. So there's a frequency thing. Now, when I first got sober, my frequency was very erratic. Tension, anxiety, because that's what had always been there. So the drugs and alcohol were maybe holding that at bay for a while. Without the drugs and alcohol, that comes back up again. The frequency is there. The frequency is there. Now, the question for all of us is, what can we do about our frequency? This frequency of addiction is not because we're doing drugs, although those bring on new frequencies and new consequences, new energies. If you've ever been around somebody who is a methamphetamine addict or a heroin addict, you would be able to tell those two people are in very different energies but those are subsets of the frequency of addiction. There's a stuckness there, and each of them are experiencing this stuckness through the chemical lens of a particular drug consequence or experience. When all that's taken away, we're coming back home to what's here. What was here for me was anxiety, but not just anxiety. I have excitement. I have joy. I have lots of things going on. I'm learning how to live. But my way of interacting, for example, with women in my relationships, my romantic relationships in early recovery, like I'm just starting to really go to school to learn how to grow up in my relationships. Just starting at 24. I've had many relationships up to that point, but now I'm sober. Now I'm present, or at least I'm much more present than I used to be. And so what I start to see are patterns. I can only see those patterns because I'm sober. If I'm not sober, I can't see those patterns, and I never get to address those patterns. What do you call somebody who never gets to address their patterns in their life? Unfortunate. Very unfortunate. So because we all have decided to remove drugs and alcohol from our life, most of us, we are able to start to see things which we can begin to identify as patterns, which demonstrate a certain energy, an energetic that we are carrying, which is our frequency. So for me, the frequency of addiction in my life, sort of like, think of it like pitch or tone. The tone of addiction with drugs and alcohol is a certain tone. And then I'm sober, but I'm not grounded yet, and I'm very uncomfortable, and relationships are challenging or what have you, and I'm not sure of my creative purpose. And maybe that tone is but it's still there, that frequency, that thing. There's a process of unfolding and awakening going on, but I'm still in certain ways feeling the characteristic of being out of control with my own behavior, whether that's sex or relationships, cigarettes, food, money, creativity, etc. But I'm learning. And as I go forward, and some of you know that gambling was a really big part of my addiction story. And when you step into a casino, I want to tell you, if you're not aware, because you've never been in a casino, God bless you, by the way, if you haven't, no reason to ever go there, I can assure you. But there's a frequency in that casino. Absolutely. There's an energy in there. And that energy is there. It's like an energetic spider's web. It's there to keep you there. They pump fresh oxygen into the room. That's a fact. To keep you awake. They want you to stay awake as much as you can so that you can lose all your money. Stay there longer. They will send distractions your way in the form of women or men or alcohol or drugs. They are very manipulative in their language and the way that they set things up to keep you there. I remember the day that I stopped gambling. I gambled for the last time. The experience of it was, I was in a casino for about 30 minutes. I knew I wasn't supposed to be there. It had been a long time since I had been there. So this was really a relapse. I went in the casino. You know how you know you're relapsing? When you're walking into the casino, you do one of these. And then you run up the stairs and hope nobody's seen you. You know what I mean? You know that's a relapse. So there I am in the casino, and my heart is pumping out of my chest. My hands are sweating. All that chemistry is there. I'm high. Before I even lay one bet down, I'm already high. I'm in the energy. I played a few hands of something, lost money, won money, lost money, won money, lost money, won money, lost money. Couldn't win, couldn't lose. And then God gave me an unbelievable gift. I was given the gift of seeing, literally, the energy, the frequency. I saw it. I saw the reptilian consciousness of the people there. The people who work there, the people who gamble there. It was all the same darkness. And I saw it in front of my eyes. Like I'm looking at you right now. It was that clear. This is a frequency. And it was very, 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 very dark. Very old and dense, super dense consciousness. Nobody there going anywhere. You're going nowhere. No matter what the circumstances of your life is. Think of that. Those people, anyone there, this is my opinion, going nowhere. Stuck. And I saw it. And so I cashed in my money and I left. And I stepped out into the fresh air. And I was like, wow. Okay, now, you never know. For me, it was day one, right? That was day one now. I was back on day one. So I couldn't say at that moment, I'm never going to gamble again. Now I can look back and say, I'm never going to gamble again. But I saw it for what it was. This is the frequency of addiction. The frequency of addiction is a resonant energy with other energies of the same frequency. Why do people who are stuck in addiction of any form seem to encounter other people who have the same addiction without even looking for them? Why do you end up in the same environments? Why do you end up with the same kind of pain or the same kind of triumph? We all end up in the same places as the energy and the consciousness that accompanies it. That frequency of addiction is what brought us together in crack houses, or in the bar, or in the casino, or looking at pornography over and over and over. Whatever the thing was, it doesn't make a bit of difference. Or at the refrigerator, looking at food when you're not hungry and just not able to help yourself, or throwing up, or whatever it is. That's all the frequency of addiction. And there's a loneliness to it. There's an aloneness, a very painful isolation to it. And when we go out into the world with that frequency, we're bound to find circumstances that match the frequency. And people who are stuck in addiction don't like being told, you're responsible for this. You're doing this. You don't see it, but you're doing this. And what I want to tell you right now, all of you, you're doing this now. We find ourselves here because now we have a different frequency, and that frequency resonates with this. For some reason, we show up on Thursday nights together. You show up here. I see your faces. You're familiar to me, most of you. And so our frequency must have changed. Our energy, the frequency of that energy, of what we feel and what we think, the people we end up around, the things that come into our mind that seem like, well, a thought dropped into my mind. I can assure you it doesn't work that way. Your brain is like an antenna, your mind that draws in the thoughts based upon your consciousness. When you elevate your consciousness, all of a sudden you start thinking different things. Different ideas come to you. So, having been in the frequency of addiction, I now understand, and here's the big takeaway. Despite the fact that I'm 30 years plus sober, that unto itself does not do anything for me in the way of a guarantee of how I'm going to wake up the next day. No guarantee. What I have is practice. Practice waking up in a variety of different frequencies and learning what to do to elevate from there, whatever the frequency is. That's what I have practice with. I have 365 days times 30 plus of practice doing that. Not conscious every day, of course. So many of those days, waking up, I'm too busy today. I gotta give me 7 cups of tea and let me get out the door. You know? Triple espresso, gone. Thank you. Sadhana, later, tomorrow, whatever. It's just big day, big day. Many days like that. That's me being separate from me. That's me for that day or that time being willing to step into that frequency of addiction yet again. Even though my addiction, my addictive acting out is not what it used to be, it still removes me from truth. Remember, we spoke about satsang. I'm only interested in one thing. I believe. I offer for your consideration. We're all only interested in one thing, which is peace. We have different ideas about how we can bring that about in our life. That's what separates us. And eventually, I truly believe that it will be about an ultimate truth about how we really achieve peace. It won't be about personality. In other words, I want to be a professional baseball player. That's my person. That's my thing. I'm into sports and baseball. I love baseball. And if I get to be a professional baseball player, I'll be at peace. Does that sound true? If that were true, then every single baseball player would be at perfect peace. Not the case. Someone else wants, if I could do this, if I get this happening in my life, then I can be at peace. No. When we connect with the truth within us, and the way we do that is through sitting still, silence, meditation, practice so the physical body gets its kinks out. But through the meditative process, steady practice over time, we can find true peace. Not the peace that depends upon being this or doing that or seeking approval and getting that approval or anything in the outside world. When the gambling left my life, when I let that go, and cigarettes, and I started to work on relationships in a way that was progressive, helpful, and I had practice in my now 21 years with my wife, and I learned to accept my humanity and be in self-forgiveness as a practice, and try to extend that forgiveness to others. I really took to heart some of the things we learn in the big book. Things like, there's a line in there that says at some point, we stopped fighting anyone and anything. Now, I haven't been perfect at that in 30 years, but I really have consciously tried. It's made my life better. The frequency will change when we come into harmonic resonance with our heart and soul. and our peace will come from there. It will not be about money. It just will not. We have too many examples of the wealthy who are so miserable. So we know that's not the ticket. Now, yes, we need some money to live our life, but that won't be the thing that did it. So it's just such an important thing for us to really look at this frequency and work on our life at the level of frequency. This is why Kundalini Yoga, why we do these Kriyas. Raise your hand if you know what I'm talking about. Have you done the breath work? Have you done the yoga that we offer? Yes? Have you done it? I want to see your hands. Have you have you done classes and things? Okay. If you haven't, please try. Give yourself an experience of shifting your frequency, moving out of past memory, trauma, bringing yourself to the present for a minute. You can't think your way there. That's why we apply these techniques. You know, if someone said to me, just sit down and be present. Come on. Really? When I first got sober, just sit down and be present. It's not working. This is not fun for me. You know, I'm not getting anywhere with this. Just sit down and be present. No, you have to change the energy, the frequency, so that you can be in a frequency where a meditative mind can happen. Do you understand? Different things become possible for you because you changed the frequency. We can change our frequency by understanding things and coming to greater understanding. That's why we do this. But that's really the goal here. Is there are mystical experiences that await anybody who's able to deeply and profoundly shift their frequency. It's not that we're seeking the mystical for the mystical's sake. It's a greater level of understanding of the things that take place in the universe. And each of us with greater bandwidth of frequency, openness, awakening, awareness, intuition goes through the roof. You suddenly know how to handle things which used to baffle you. You've heard that somewhere. This is intuition. Someone will call it, oh, higher power. I got a great download from my higher power. Great. Or I connected with something in the quantum field and new information came in. Or I healed something in my body that I hadn't been able to heal before. Or I reached a new level of acceptance and somehow I just feel like the weight of the world is off my shoulders. That's what we're talking about. So we do this process together, this yoga together, this talking together. We go to our meetings together and you speak to each other and we speak to each other. We listen to each other and we're elevated through the experience of each other's wisdom and strength and hope. So I don't live in the misunderstanding that because I'm any amount of days or years sober, that my work is somehow done. I will know my work's done when I've taken my last breath. And before that moment, apparently, I have more work to do. And my work is a one day at a time thing, and I highly recommend it.